I want to give you a report on last weekend where I went, and it's becoming just clear to me that it's not good for the pastor to disappear and not say where he went or what happened, and where did that guy go, and what did he do for 4 days? Just relaxed, and it was very relaxing, very refreshing. It was an encouraging weekend, but there was a lot to do as well, and so. And please bear with me, I have bit my cheek, and now I'm trying to talk and do things. And my cheeks are, 20 pounds a piece, but they feel like they're 40 pounds a piece whenever, you bite it. It's just incredibly painful. So, and then you keep, yes, exactly. And so it's always terrible. Psalm 133 says, "Behold how good and how pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together in unity. It is like the precious oil upon the head, coming down upon the beard, even Aaron's beard, coming down upon the edge of his robes. It is like the dew of Hermon, coming down upon the mountains of Zion. For there the Lord commanded the blessing, life forevermore." What a beautiful image of the unity of the people of God. And it's always encouraging whenever I have the opportunity to travel and to meet other Christian brothers and sisters that I've never met before, how there is just such an instant friendship, an instant connection with the brethren. I don't have to worry necessarily about who they are, what they do, where they've been. I know whose they are. I know what they believe, and they belong to the same one I belong to. And they believe the same basic things that I believe, and we are together. All the spiritual realities that are true about me are true about them. All the blessings I've been blessed with in the heavenly places are true about me and true about them, because we're all part of one body. Christ is our head. I don't have to feel odd and uncomfortable and feel like I'm in a place I don't belong, because I do belong there, all right? And so this is a beautiful thing about the body of Christ. And I had the opportunity last weekend, left on Friday, came back in Monday night, to go to Chilliwack, British Columbia. And I've never been to Chilliwack before. But in Chilliwack is a church called Free Grace Baptist Church, and there was a conference going on called Confessing the Faith. It's an annual conference that they have. I don't know how many years they've had it, 4 or 5 maybe. It's the church there is led by Jim Butler and Cameron Porter, and we'll see some pictures of them here in a minute. And it was just a wonderful time, and so I had the opportunity to go to the conference. I had reason to go to the conference, and I'll share that here in a moment. But when I arrived, we went first to the Free Reformed Church. This is a Reformed church in the town there of Chilliwack that allowed Free Grace to use their building or rent their building. I'm not sure exactly what. But Free Grace Chilliwack's building was not large enough for the conference, and so they had it at the Free Reformed Church. And here's just a little picture of the outside of the building. It's a beautiful place, and inside, when I arrived, I found a very big pulpit that some people were talking about on Signal, and I feel, I don't know, almost Arminian now. It's like, it just must have to be bigger. I don't know. I've always heard this is a big pulpit. And I told Rich Barcelos at the conference, who always complains about the pulpit here, I said, I don't want to ever hear from you again about how big the pulpit is in our church. Because when Rich, that's a picture, Rich is preaching. Can you see him? He's there. He's preaching. Just trust me, he's there. And no, he's not actually there, not in that one. But it's big. Not only is it tall, it's just like so wide. And here's a David Charles preaching in the pulpit. He's much taller than Rich. He's about my height. And So you can imagine what Rich looks like in that. Kind of like if Ziggy were a preacher. Some of you remember Ziggy, the little guy that has his nose right above the fence and all the little postcards? Or maybe, who was Tim the Toolman's neighbor? Wilson? Is that him? You always just saw like here or whatever. And but inside I found many sweet people and some people that you know. This is Lexi's brother and sister-in-law. I've forgotten her name for the moment. Aaron is his name. What's her? This is terrible. Maybe Lexi will come in a few minutes and remind us, and their little one. And so, very sweet to see them. I just kind of walked in I was looking for the snacks. Oh, look, and it's Reddy's. Okay, Josiah, Eli, your Uncle Aaron. What's his wife's name? Elizabeth, thank you. I drew a blank. Thank you, young men. They save the day. Always ready with the answer. Okay. Well, we spent Friday afternoon and Friday evening and Saturday morning hearing many wonderful lectures by Dr. Renahan, Dr. Barcelos, and Pastor David Charles. And I'd never met David before. I'd talked to him on the phone a few times, and he's a good brother and has a big bushy beard, and we talked about that a little bit too. All right, but apparently Rich is older than David. Figure that one out. And so there was some envy of Rich's dark hair from David, and but it was a good time. We had some wonderful lectures on chapter 3 in our confession on God's decree. Jim opened us up with a study on God's decree in the Puritan confessions, primarily our confession, and he walked through our confession looking at various places where the decree is mentioned, and it's mentioned many places, but it doesn't use the term decree. It'll speak of God's will or God's purpose or God's pleasure, things such as that. Rich came and spoke an introductory lecture on the decree of God, and then we dealt with some questions like, is God the author of sin? The end or goal of God's decree being the glory of God. From eternity to here, how God's decree brings life. So we went back into like the covenant of redemption, came into time, the covenant of grace where we're given life in Christ. We talked about how important it is to handle the subject of the decree of God, especially related to predestination, with great care. There's a section in our confession in chapter 3, I think paragraph 6 maybe, or maybe 7. Yeah, 7. It says, the doctrine of this high mystery of predestination is to be handled with special prudence and care, that men attending to the will of God revealed in his word and yielding obedience thereto may, from the certainty of their effectual vocation or calling, be assured of their election. Perhaps you or someone you know has been guilty of not handling the doctrine of election with prudence and with care. It can be a difficult doctrine for some to handle and hear. It's probably not the doctrine that you want to use for evangelism. It's probably not the doctrine that you want to use for the comfort of a brand new believer. It's probably not the doctrine that you want to use in those early rudimentary sections of discipleship. Not that it's a bad doctrine at all, but it's a deep doctrine, and it's a difficult doctrine, and it can be handled in a way that's not prudent and not careful. And I've seen it happen before where people are actually harmed, not by the doctrine, but by an imprudent use of the doctrine. And so maybe you've seen that yourself. And then we had a fun Q&A time where pretty much everybody just looked at Jim. What do you say, Jim? Jim? That's how I feel whenever I get to be on Q&A panels, and sometimes I'm just like, why am I here? Just look at Jim. Yeah, and I look at Jim too for that. And so, yeah, the only time I become the smartest guy in the room is when everybody leaves. And even then it's questionable. And so, But I did say that there was kind of a specific reason that I had gone to this conference. What would draw me all the way to Chilliwack, British Columbia? All right, they've had this conference before. I've known about it, but I've not gone. I usually try to stay a little more local in things that I go to. When I walked in the building to register, Rich Barcelos came around the corner and he looked at me. He's like, "What are you doing here? Why would you be all the way in Canada?" All right, and I said, "Well, because I wanted to hear you," and that was pretty much true. There was some truth in that, and the full truth of why I was there and why everybody was there really kind of came out later on, was because last year. Early in the year, David Charles had given me a phone call, and he was calling several other people as well. And he was soliciting guys to contribute to a book that was being put together in honor of Rich Barcelos. Because of just the help he's been to so many of us, we wanted to honor him for that. And this in academic circles is called a Festschrift, I think. It's like an honorary writing. It's a German term of some kind. And so I had the wonderful opportunity of contributing to a book that's called A Faithful Steward, Essays in Honor of Richard Barcelos. And some of the guys that contributed to this, they list James Dolezal first. They were going to list me first, but they thought, we'll give it to James. We'll let him have it. James Renahan, J.V. Fesco, Drew Sparks, R. Scott Clark. Drew Sparks is a new professor for RBS. Jordan Cooper. I believe Jordan Cooper is a Lutheran guy. Glenn Butner, I think, is a Methodist. Tim Decker. Some of you know Tim. He came and spoke to us a year and a half ago or so. He's the guy that had the heart transplant. I'm sorry? No, Tim was not there. Oh yeah, we got some guys up here, don't we? Okay. So let's see, guys that might be on the deal. Mike Riccardi. Mike, I think, is of the Master's Seminary. Chuck Rennie. By the way, Chuck Rennie, who is one of our CBA pastors with Sal Pacino up at Sycamore Reformed Baptist Church in East Moline, Illinois, just defended his doctoral dissertation at Aberdeen in Scotland and passed with flying colors, as I was pretty sure he would. So that was a good praise God moment there. Ryan Davidson, he's also one of our profs, and he pastors in Virginia. Daniel Scheider, on the far right is Jim Butler. Daniel is in the kind of white shirt. He is a professor for us at RBS and pastors in Pennsylvania. And Daniel will actually be here next month, May the 17th, to preach for us. David Van Drunen, who is URC, United Reformed Church, I believe. He teaches at Westminster West in Escondido. So a lot of these guys are friends of Jim's over the years as well. Sam Waldron and myself. So I did a chapter 16 on Irenaeus and his work on the demonstration of apostolic preaching, on Christ being the scope of Scripture. Some of you guys are in the preaching class, and next month we're going to be dealing next month is Vishal, but in June we'll be doing some lectures that night on Irenaeus' work on the demonstration of apostolic preaching. So this was really fun. When I was writing it, it was not fun. It was kind of a few months of misery trying to do different things, but it was enjoyable overall to write, and a lot of fun to see the final product, and to be there with the men to participate in that was encouraging as well. And so, the guy at the bottom in the wheelchair, that's Ed Romine. Some of you guys know Ed. He also contributed a chapter or two. And so, Jeff? The guy on my right is Cameron Porter. He's one of the elders at Free Grace, Chilliwack. So if you want to look at this, you're welcome to. If you want to get a copy, this is the first book in a new a publishing group called IRBS Academic Press. So IRBS is trying to get into the academic printing, and this is their kind of entry book into that. All right. So on Saturday, the conference was over about 12:30 or 1, and one of the men, a man by the name of Ryan Mulhars, came up to me. Ryan is a student at IRBS. I saw several students from IRBS up there because several students live up there and go to this church. But Ryan Mulhars came over to me and said, "Hey, would you like to come to a meeting?" And I was like, "Well, sure," because I never knew what I was doing for the couple days I was there. And the poor people I stayed with, she would plan meals, she would plan things, and I'm like, "Well, they're making me go over here." And she's like, "That's fine, no problem." I stayed with a real sweet family, the Shooks, and their three kids while I was there. But so Ryan comes over and asks me if I want to go to a meeting. I'm like, "Well, sure, why not? What's the meeting?" And he said, "Well, it's the meeting of our association." And I was like, "You have an association? That's really cool. Way up here in Western Canada, you have an association of churches, all right?" Well, we think we have to drive a long way in Texas to go to things. They've got churches in the Western Association of Canada and the Western Association of Reformed Baptist, the Association of Reformed Baptist Churches of Western Canada, all right? This is what they mean. So here's Canada. They mean British Columbia, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. 3 provinces. We had guys at this meeting that drove like 16 hours to come to the meeting, all right? Or flew, one or the other. I don't know what they did. So this was very surprising. I had no idea this was even taking place. And they fed us lunch, and we had a wonderful meeting together. And I don't know if I can make this work or not, and it might just be terrible, but it was kind of fun. It's not coming through on that, is it? Can you see it? Maybe that's loud enough. Well, aside from the very low bass guy that was holding the phone, well, there were probably about 20 of us in the meeting, and it was just really amazing to me. I had just no idea that it was going to happen. The Association of Reformed Baptist Churches of Western Canada, this is from their website, the Association of Reformed Baptist Churches of Western Canada was established in 2024 to promote unity among Reformed Baptist churches. Guided by the confession, we strive to support one another in ministry, doctrinal accountability, and fellowship. They gather for 4 basic purposes. These are very common with associations: supporting church planting, which they are doing there in the Western region. They were talking about a couple churches they're trying to plant. Training men for ministry. The Confessing Faith Conference is part of that. And we'll talk in a moment about other ways they're trying to train men for ministry. Encouraging mutual support, which, like I said, I had instantly when I walked in the room, and they certainly had with one another. It's very much like going to one of our associational meetings. If you've ever had the opportunity to do that, you go in, you sit down, you share things about your church, somebody prays for your church, and they would go like around the circle. They would welcome the guest churches and things such as that. And then providing doctrinal accountability, which they do through the confession, all right? The association is led by 2 principal men. They have a moderator and a vice moderator. I thought this is a good idea because we only have a moderator. And sometimes when the moderator can't come, we're stuck, and we have to see who's going to lead that particular meeting. Mike Kirkpatrick, and the vice moderator, Ryan Mulhars. Ryan is the guy I mentioned a moment ago, who is a student of mine and an IRBS student. And we'll talk about, I want to introduce you to the churches, okay? The first church, they have 7 churches in the association. They had 6 at the meeting, and 1 joined. So now there are 7, all right? But 1 was not present at the meeting because they do not have a pastor. A beautiful building, lovely little area, but no pastor. So this is a church to pray for. We'll mention in a moment. Free Grace Baptist Church is pastored by Jim Butler and Cameron Porter. Jim has been in this church about 27 years. He was an elder with Rich Barcelos in Palmdale back in the 90s. And he was called by the church in Chilliwack. That was a group of Reformed Baptist folks in this area that began to meet. And they kept having guys come up. Maybe some of you remember, this was back in Faith Community days. There was a church in Vernon, British Columbia. And there were about 8 different TARBC guys that were flying up there every weekend. And I went 3 times over the course of about a year. And so that was a church kind of like that. And this church, Free Grace, well, became Free Grace, had different guys from all over the country flying in, well, America and Canada, flying in to preach and teach at this church. And eventually, 27 years ago, they called Jim. And he took me to my ride Monday morning to leave. We had a good half an hour. That was real nice. We've talked on the phone a little bit and text, but haven't really had a chance to meet him in person. So this was very enjoyable. We got to be in the home of his son on Saturday night. We went over there for a fellowship time. And then on Sunday night, one of the other men in the church and his wife invited us all over, all the pastors that were there. And we had some good fellowship there too. Cameron Porter is just as big and stocky as he looks. He has a neck that's as big as his head. I mean, it's just, and he's not fat. He's just kind of a don't mess with me Kojak kind of a guy. And Cam is, I don't think he ever went to seminary, but he's incredibly bright, incredibly well-read, theologically, just a real powerhouse of a guy. And that's his wife there. I don't think Jim's wife wanted to pose with him. I don't know what happened there. So, no, just kidding. So really enjoyed meeting these brothers and getting to talk with them. Apparently I had met Cameron back in a few years back, but I'd forgotten. And so we had some good fellowship there as well. So pray for the church, Free Grace Baptist Church in Chilliwack. They will be thankful for your prayers, and they will benefit from them. A church that was planted by Free Grace a few years back is the Surrey Reformed Baptist Church by Michael Kirkpatrick. He is the pastor there. In 2018, I believe it was, one of the last ARBCA General Assemblies, which was in Fargo, North Dakota. Michael Kirkpatrick was planting the church in Surrey at that time. And that's where I would have met him, but really don't remember much about him. I just knew the church existed. It's outside of Vancouver. If you want to kind of get a general area where all this stuff is, it's almost all near Vancouver. I say near, within 2 to 4 hours, somewhere like that. Until we get off to the Alberta and Saskatchewan churches, they're pretty far off. But they have a growing work there in Surrey. And they meet at a Seventh-day Adventist church. Several Seventh-day Adventist churches I've noticed up there are used for Reformed Baptist purposes on the Lord's Day. This is Ryan Mulhar's Trinity Reformed Baptist Church in Armstrong, British Columbia. This is the church that I went to preach at Vernon when it wasn't a church yet. It had not constituted. It was in a little town called Vernon. Now it's in a town a few miles away from that called Armstrong, and it is pastored by Ryan Mulhars. They've gone through some real bumps in the last 2 or 3 years. I said he was a student of mine, and by student of mine, I mean he's part of what IRBS has. It's called a legacy program, where it's like an independent study. You meet with the professor, you watch their recorded lectures, you do the readings, and then you meet and talk about what you did. Ryan had to file for, I think, like 4 extensions in the class because of difficulties in church. And I'm no stranger to what ministry can do to things like trying to read a book or get through a class, and so that was no problem. Just a super guy. It was great to meet him in person. You meet these guys on your screen, they're 2 inches tall, and you're like, just doesn't really quite communicate. And meeting in person was really enjoyable. Grace Family Reformed Baptist Church is in Medicine Hat, Alberta. You read that right. Medicine Hat, Alberta. And there's no pastor. I didn't know how to communicate no pastor, but that's the ID card for no pastor, all right? So please pray for their work. There is a deacon there in the church. He was not able to come to the meeting. I believe they read a letter from Grace Family Church at the meeting. So there are people there. There's work going on there, but there is no minister. Grace Fellowship Church in Ponoka, Alberta is overseen by 3 men. Paul, you spell your name wrong, apparently. It's Pool or Pool. I don't know what it is. He introduced himself as Paul. So when I made my notes, I just wrote Paul. And then I looked him up and I thought, I spelled that wrong. I do not know how to say this. Paul de Geer. It's probably French. All right. What's that? We need Shay. Where's Shay? Come on. Okay, somebody mark Shay down. We're going to get her for that. Paul sat beside me. We had a great talk throughout the course of the meeting, different times. And Paul is a dairy farmer. So he has like 250 cows that have to be milked every morning. And he said it's done by robots. And I'm like, I don't even think I want to know how this works. And imagine being the cow and having the robot coming. But at like 2 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning, we had to preach at 2, or had to preach. No, I'm sorry. It was the day of the meeting. His son had called him. And apparently the robots had rebelled. And there was a rebellion. And there was something. And but I guess you got to milk those cows every day. I think that's kind of the point. And I think I learned that from Little House on the Prairie, where they didn't have robots. They just had, Laura Ingalls Wilder. And so, but Paul is one of the men there, the elders, the 3. He carries the bulk of the preaching. So you can imagine a full-time dairy farmer doing the bulk of the preaching in the church. And that's got to be exhausting, even if you have 250 robots that do it for you. But yeah, it was kind of weird. He was talking about like resetting it on his phone. I thought, what a world we live in. You can reset milking robots from your phone. So do pray for Grace Fellowship. And Grace Reformed Baptist Church in Regina, Saskatchewan is led by Floyd Gadd and Rod Amberson. Floyd was not at the meeting. Rod was at the meeting, and his goatee is a little bigger than it is right there. And so Rod is the secretary for the association. So I didn't have him. He's not leading the association as in making decisions or whatever, or guiding, but he's making all the notes. So that's a very important job too. This church, yes, Moose Mountain Reformed Baptist Church, is in Arcola, Saskatchewan. And Peter Van, yes, I don't know. All right. Peter was at the meeting. Kevin St. John was not at the meeting. I take it that Kevin's probably been there for some time. Peter is probably newer, younger, but I think Peter carries the bulk of the pastoral load. So pray for Peter. And they were received into membership. That was pretty cool at the meeting. So if you want those names again later on, I can get them to you. And then there were 3 churches that were not part of the association at present, but hope to be members of the association. Kevin Armstrong, I did not get where he pastors. He has preached at a couple of the other churches. I found him on Sermon Audio. Ryan Case. Ryan and I had a very good conversation. He is really hoping Alberta secedes from the Union or whatever they have up there, all right? Apparently, the rest of the country is like milking Alberta of all of its profits and its oil and things like that, and they're not very happy. And one of the guys at lunch was about to get animated, and he was really thinking it was going to happen, so we'll see. And then Dan Morley is the non-pastor of a non-church. Dan Morley hopes to have the church that he's been overseeing constituted officially in a couple of weeks, and he will be the sole elder. And I'm trying to think the guy's name. Jim Butler's son is going to be the deacon in this new church. So they'll have one deacon and one elder. And they are, as they describe it, just in the boonies, middle of nowhere in upper Saskatchewan. And so Dan and I had some really good time to fellowship on Saturday evening at Jim's son's home when they had us there for fellowship, and just seemed like a really good brother. All these men just seemed, I was very encouraged to see all these young men pastoring these churches, and talking about the gospel, and talking about the confession, and talking about wanting to grow, and talking about wanting to plant churches, and that was just really exciting. That was on Saturday afternoon. Saturday night, as I mentioned, we had a good time of fellowship there at Jim's son's home, and tons of his little grandbabies running everywhere. That made me miss mine. And but that was pretty neat. And then we played kind of like a Bible trivia game. I mean, that's pretty fun. But then again, I was the dumbest guy in the room, and I didn't know anything. And it was one of these outburst games where they'll say like things that are holy in the Bible, and all I can think of is the Holy Spirit, because you draw a total blank on everything. And like the eighth guy in the circle. So by the time it gets to me, I'm like, I don't know. And then later on, you're thinking, Holy Mountain, Holy One of Israel, holy garments, all kinds of things. So, but in the moment, you draw a blank. Well, then on Sunday morning, they had in their Sunday school hour, they had all the pastors from all the churches that had been present at the meeting on Saturday that still stuck around, and the majority of them did, come and give a report on their church to the whole assembly. And so these brothers all took turns in the pulpit and shared with us. You can see, let's see, there's Peter and Dan and Ryan again, and the young man, I forgot his name, Kevin Armstrong from the church that I can't remember. And then Rod Emerson and Paul, and there's Ryan. Then they had another guy come up, and this brother's name, well, the guy in the pulpit is Jim Butler that we talked about, but the guy to his left is Hector Bustamante. Hector Bustamante lives in Mexico, kind of south of Chihuahua. I'm not sure what the state is south of Chihuahua there.
Chihuahua's a big state, and the capital city is...
I think the area he's in starts with a G, maybe? Anyway, well, let me tell you about Hector a little bit. Hector is probably in his 30s. He is pursuing his PhD. They are establishing a seminary connected with their church and their association they have there in Mexico. Some of you may have heard of Francisco Orozco. He's friends with Francisco. He also knows my friend down in Peru, Jorge Vega, and who has a publishing company down there, works with CBTS in Peru and Colombia and Argentina. But Hector Bustamante, they're trying to do publishing, seminary, and church planting. They're trying to do this work in Mexico. And Rich, about a week before the conference, had been in Mexico teaching for about 5 days at the seminary that's connected with their church there. And so we had a wonderful time to talk with him at lunch. And then later on in the evening, Sunday evening, he came over to the house where we were hosted by a family in the church. All the pastors were, and we had some good fellowship there. These are just a few pictures of the church in Chilliwack. This is their sanctuary from the back. If it's large enough to see, I hope it might be. The pulpit area. I don't know what we're doing here, but they have got these really swanky looking leather seats where the pastor sits. I don't know what's going on there, but I don't know. I mean, I like those, and I sit in them for 2 minutes or something, but I never saw anybody sit in these nice leather chairs, but they were kind of pretty up there. This is from the front looking to the back. A little balcony area and a cry room they have there for little people, right? One more thing to mention here. I think this is my last slide, and then we'll just take a few minutes for questions or comments and stuff. One of the ways that they are working on training men for ministry is they've now got an official connection with IRBS, and IRBS has planted IRBS Western Canada. IRBS is doing this in various countries. We have IRBS UK. That's probably like the flagship IRBS training place. We have IRBS Australia, IRBS New Zealand, IRBS in Eastern Canada. I think it's just called Canada. Now IRBS Western Canada. We're working on IRBS Zambia, and a few other places are in the mix as well. We have a connection with a group called Radius International in California for missions training, and so these are exciting things to see pop up. And if you can see it there in the top middle, that is the fellowship hall, Bible study room that they have behind the sanctuary, and that is Jim on the far right-hand side at the table, teaching a group of about 15 guys and ladies on the confession. Jim did that for the week before the conference. And so sitting in the airport with Jim on Monday, he was tired. He had been somewhere the previous weekend. Then he had flown up to Canada to teach for 4 days his symbolics class, which is about a 24 hours worth of lecture. Then he spoke 3 or 4 times at the conference, and I asked him if he was preaching at the church. He said no. So he was not preaching. And but it's Jim, so people want to talk to him, and they want to see what's going on. And so we hung out Monday morning, rode to the airport, sat there for a few hours, and but very excited about IRBS Western Canada as well. All right, that's what I've got.